I'm ready to seam my shoulders, and I want the shoulders to be fairly narrow because the neckline is going to roll in between them for sort of a boat neck effect. And so I've determined I want my shoulders to be about 3 inches. And that boils down to about 13 stitches. So what I'm going to do first, or what I've already done, is on both pieces, I'm going to count my columns of stitches. And if you remember, a column of stitches looks like a V. So I'm going to count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, and I've just put some waist yarn in there. And I've done the same thing on the other side, if it has not already pulled free, which it has not. Okay, now I'm going to be seaming these two shoulders together, and when you seam two bound off edges, where you're going to be placing the seam is in the center of the stitch below the bind off edge. If you use the bind off edge, it's going to look crappy, and you don't want to place it in between the columns of stitches. You want it in the stitch itself. And what I find easier to visualize this is if I seam them this way, because then one piece is not upside down. So I'm going to insert my stitch, my needle with my tapestry thread into the center of this stitch and then out of the center of the next stitch on the other side. And then I am going to do the same thing on this piece. Into the center, out of the center. And by the way, in my regular blog, arendaholiday.com, I have a lot of videos of this and actually using lighter color yarn that might be easier to see. I'm going to go into the center of a stitch where I came out of, and then out of the center of the next stitch, into the center of the stitch where my yarn came out of. It's kind of hard to do without a table. And then out of, and I'm basically going to continue to do this until I have seamed all 13 stitches. And there we go, that's the problem. And in, out, in, out, in, out. And again, this is easier to see if you visualize it this way. If you have it top to bottom, one side's right side up and one side's upside down, it's kind of hard to visualize. And I'm going to pause this for just a second, and then when I'm done, we'll see how we finish it up. You can see that I've finished going into all of those stitches, and if you've done it right, it's going to look like the stitch pattern is continuing. But to finish this thing off, what I do is I grab one end and I grab the other end and I pull tight, and there is my shoulder seam. And you can see that the neck edge will continue to roll on that edge.